the train, I kept telling myself to just be myself. I had a prescription for a low milligram anti-anxiety medication as well as a mild beta blocker, and I kept going into the bathroom to take more. I wanted to get the mixture right. After I took a pill, I'd check myself in the mirror, and I'd always be surprised at what I found. I kept expecting to find a monster. At the station, I checked my phone, and she'd left me this message where she just said my whole name, William Way. She sounded completely freaked out. I knew her pretty well by this time. I could tell from how she sounded. It took everything in her not to run. She was waiting across the street from the terminal, just standing there in front of her old car. She had on a green army coat and paint-splattered corduroy pants. Her features were something like I pictured, wide eyes, Frida Kahlo. But she was more beautiful than I expected her to be. When I got over to her car, before I could say anything, she said, "Are you nervous? Are you? We'll go to my house and relax." In the car ride, she kept switching the tapes in her tape deck and peering at me while she did it. I could tell she didn't like what she was seeing, but I didn't know what to do. I thought she'd already seen me. I thought I was the one who was permitted to feel some disappointment. She lived on the top floor of a converted flour mill. The sleeping area was the size of an ordinary bedroom, divided from the main area by 10 foot. The sleeping area was the size of an ordinary bedroom, divided from the main area by 10-foot industrial shelves full of record albums, the inventory from her brother's store. He was itinerant and sometimes wrote to her, asking her to sell so many feet of albums. Her bed was a queen-size mattress on the floor. She pointed to the rotary phone beside and lifted her cat to introduce him by name. Then, she led me through the center position of the loft, past a sliding glass door that connected to another apartment, a place rented to someone named Douglas. He was gone for the weekend, and so I didn't think much about him. I don't think I will describe her kitchen or her work area except a photo on the fridge. It was of an old man in a top hat and tails. She told me that was Douglas. I was about to tell her a story that the photo reminded me of when she handed me a piece of banana bread, a glass of milk, and 2 pills. "What are these?" I said. "My mom sent them to me earlier in the week. Something about her bowels." "What?" "She can't have opiates." "They're opium?" "Percocet." I ate the pills and broke the bread into pieces. What I wanted was for the two of us to go and sit by the window and listen to record albums and get soulful, but Coco turned on the TV and flipped through the stations until she found a documentary. When that was over, she got a couple more pills for us and found a medley on a different station. We got takeout from a delivery service, and around 11, her hair had fallen down and her cheek was resting on her hand, so the top of her head just touched my shoulder. I still have the shirt I was wearing at that time. It's hanging in my closet. I turned on my side to look at her body, and she pretended to keep watching TV. I said, "I like your shoes." "Those?" She lifted her head and turned to look at her feet. "Those are ballet slippers." "I like how you're wearing them as shoes." "Everyone does that." "Everyone does what?" She shook her head slightly from side to side. "Everyone does what?" I said. "I travel business class." She pointed a finger in the air. "Un momento, por favor. Muchas gracias, señor." She was singing along with the television, but I stopped her before the next line. I kissed her. It was a bit like kissing a doll or a timid old lady. That she didn't kiss me back, but I don't know if you know this. That could be very attractive. Later, Coco and I were together in Haze, and her shirt was off, and she told me how she often introduced men to love her. Later, Coco and I were together in Haze, and her shirt was off, and she told me how she often induced men to love her and then abandoned them. She said, "Didn't you notice how I forced this on you?" I said, "I don't know what you mean." And she said, "Yeah, that's what I'm telling you." So that was where it ended. Or really, it ended in the car the first time we looked at each other. I mean, she thought I was ugly, and I could see that. The thing about a dark truth is it is indistinguishable from doubt. And so, since I couldn't just go home, I kept approaching the dark area. Not by anything I said, but not by anything I said, but by what I did, and by watching how she reacted. She was nice at times, but at others, when her kindness drew me in, she was sharp, and I spent the weekend confused. I kept thinking, but she already saw my face. The next morning, I was buttoning my shirt in the mirror when Coco opened her eyes. She yawned and smiled at my reflection and said, "You have a nice face." Then she pushed herself up onto all fours and shifted her butt in the air. She rested her cheek sideways on her folded arms and said, "We should go and eat eggs." I wonder why I didn't say anything to her then, like, "Why are you putting your butt in the air?" I guess it was because I didn't know what was going on. I'd gotten clammed up by the stuff the night before. I was shaky from the pills. The restaurant was walking distance away. It was one of those local ingredients places. It had polished stone floors, and the polish was so high that when the hostess led us to the dining room, I thought there was a step up, but there wasn't one. It was just a trick of the light. "What are you doing?" Coco said. "I thought it was a step." "You were like..." She galloped one leg in imitation. Everything I did made her angry. After we had our omelet, she pointed to a place between two of her teeth and said, "What's that thing there?" I have a large filling between two of my teeth about where she was pointing, so I told her that. "It's a filling." She said, "I can see it when you talk." We went for a walk around the neighborhood. It was starting to feel like spring. We crossed into a residential area. On the sidewalk, one leashed dog was meeting another dog, and he got so excited he lost his footing and fell down on his side. An old suburban house was up for sale, and we let ourselves into its backyard to have a look around. One of its windows had been broken from the inside, and the pane lay in 4 pieces in the soil of a flower bed. I brushed my hand against Coco's, and she whipped her head around and said, "Do you want to take mushrooms?" "What?" "I have 10. They were mixed into chocolates. They had been given to her by a friend, a photographer for Playboy. She said that several times. Playboy. She ate 2 chocolates and I ate 1, and then we split a 4th. We got into her bed, and when I opened my eyes an hour later, the world was brilliant, alien, and unformed, and Coco was talking on the phone in the voice of a transistor radio. "I'm fucked up," she said. "I'm on mushrooms. I'm on drugs." "Yes, he's here since Friday." "No, I don't think so. No, not anything like that. Hold on." She pushed the phone aside and said, "I'm talking to Douglas." I was really confused, so I went to get some air. I stood up out of the bed and went to look out the window. I stuck my head out and looked down at the alley where a homeless man was digging through the garbage for glass bottles. I was really messed up, so I couldn't remember what to do. I was trying to remember if it was proper to throw money down at him. Somehow I knew it wasn't right, but I couldn't figure out why. So I leaned back into the apartment and went to find my wallet. I looked for it out in the front room, and then I remembered where I left it. Yes, I was thinking, it definitely was what you did. You threw the money down. That was when I realized that Coco had put the phone down and she was crying. She had been explaining for how long I'm not sure, that her mother had cancer. She told me that her mother had cancer of the bowels. I tried to console her. I sat beside her and put an arm around her shoulders. She let me hold her for a second, and then she stood up, and in a moment, she had her keys and the door slammed, and she was gone. The car was doing a little dance with its claws, that dance that somehow associated with cat sex. and I was alone on her bed. It wasn't until recently I realized that whole thing about her mother was a lie. Besides, when I was consoling her, I wasn't really consoling her at all. Anyway, it was a long time before she came back. The sorts of things I thought during that time while I sat there, I can never really say. It was heavy. I think that's what people say. It was a bad trip. It was heavy. I think I can safely say it changed my life.